According to The Economist, London is far safer than violent viral videos will have you believe. It's interesting being here in Sydney, Australia, reading that, and then at the same time also seeing news articles that people like Tom Cruise, they're packing up, they're fleeing London. Tom Cruise is leaving his London apartment reportedly just after a shop near him was robbed, Esther.
Yes, I mean, what they're basically saying is close one eye and squint the other, and then put on sunglasses, and then you can pretend that London is what it is. I mean, other than from personal experience, having my friend's phone stolen on Oxford Street only a few months ago, seeing people literally being questioned by the police randomly as I was taking a walk with my friend in Knightsbridge because some armed robbers decided to smash up, I think it was a Chanel shop, and steal whatever they could get their hands on, and the police decided to question me because I look like an armed robber apparently. Look, the reality is the kinds of people that come up with these sorts of statements do not live in London or live in such a leafy part of London that actually when they call the police, they turn up. If you go outside of even outside of sort of the central areas, the data is very clear and it's very hard to mask it in any other way. The fact is, knife crime is up. It's been up by over 50% since Keir Starmer since Sadiq Khan became London mayor. Phone thefts are through the
Wow.
roof to the point where the police are not even doing anything about it. They take a crime reference number for insurance purposes and then get you on your merry way. Sexual assault. I mean, there's, I believe, a rape every few hours in London, and that's something that the Metropolitan Police again can't talk away or try to say, oh, but it's not that bad, because rape is never that bad, or some sort of ridiculous excuse that they could come up with. The reality is London is deteriorating fast. The number of non-doms that you see leaving London isn't just because of the Chancellor's poor tax plans. It's because why would you, a wealthy person, live in a major city where you're not safe? You can't wear any of your luxury jewelry. A man was stabbed to death last year for his Rolex watch. A man and a father of two who just visited London with his children. I mean, where is the room to hide and to paint the picture as something that it's
Yeah.
not? So this is the kind of things that infuriates people because they just think that the electorate is so adrift from the people that are actually running the country, and these are the kinds of things that radicalize them.
It's just so sad. It is so shocking. And then it's kind of infuriating reading pieces like that in the media where they're just pretending what is happening in London, it just does not exist. I want to talk to you about Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and the Epstein files. Of course, the newly released Epstein files has just raised more questions around Andrew Mountbatten Windsor and his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. Skynews.com.au is reporting that King Charles is furious with Keir Starmer after Keir Starmer joined calls for Andrew to testify to Congress. Look, the Andrew allegations are incredibly damaging to the royal family. They are. But Keir Starmer, I suppose he's really put in his place when you look at the pecking order of importance in the UK. Esther, what do you make of this story?
I mean, he made a statement about Prince Andrew having to go to the US to testify before Congress just as he was getting off a plane from China. So his excuse is that he's been insulated for the last 4 days. Remember his trip to China, this country that we should be having closer ties with, that he trusts so much. Him and his entire team had to take burner phones and
Mm.
laptops because they were scared of being spied upon. But he made this remark that infuriated the king off the cuff because he hadn't actually consulted the palace. And while the Buckingham Palace has tried to do what it can do to minimize the furore around Prince Andrew and his association, or the prince formerly known as Andrew, and his association with Jeffrey Epstein, this has been very much a coordinated effort between Buckingham Palace and number 10 Downing Street. And so for Keir Starmer to go off the record and say, Prince Andrew should go to the US to testify before Congress. Well, first of all, he can't be compelled to do so, which is actually what Keir Starmer said a few months before. And secondly, it's completely inappropriate for him to do that and to basically take a decision on behalf of the royal family without the king's explicit permission. You have to remember that it's King Charles that basically saved his relationship with Donald Trump. Without the royal family, Donald Trump doesn't have time for Keir Starmer, and certainly not Peter Mandelson, who was not highly regarded amongst sort of Republican top brass.
Mm.
So this is something that he will regret, and I'm sure the king will take him to task on that. But just even raising that and giving it life and having Lib Dem politicians say, yes, actually, he should go to America, is going to put a lot of pressure on Buckingham Palace that they really don't need at the moment.
Mm.
Already, they had to smuggle Prince Andrew out of his home under the cover of darkness because they're so embarrassed by him. I'm sure at some point they'll say they're going to ship him to a village in India or something just to really get rid of him. But it's not helpful for the royal family to have these interventions by a prime
Mm.
minister who's basically a dead man walking.
Well, finally, I have to talk to you about the Beckhams. It appears an Oprah Winfrey sit-down interview could possibly be on the cards for Brooklyn Beckham, following reports that Meghan Markle has been offering herself as a mentor following this family breakup bombshell. The 26-year-old has apparently been receiving support from the Duchess of Sussex since he posted on Instagram about his family and the breakdown. Esther, is this a good idea for Brooklyn Beckham to be getting advice from Meghan Markle?
Well, obviously not. And usually these kinds of kind of insider scoops are usually quite dubious at the best of times. However, there is a form for this to actually have some credibility. We do remember that the Beckhams were actually at Prince Harry and Meghan's wedding. They grew closer to the couple after they were married, because of David Beckham's kind of acquaintance with Prince Harry, that when he used to run into him during sort of royal engagements and all of that, but it wasn't really a close friendship. And then we find out a few years later that the couple had fallen out, allegedly because the Sussexes didn't trust the Beckhams and they felt like they were the source of leaks about their private lives, so they cut off that relationship. There is some form that Meghan Markle might see herself in Brooklyn Beckham, with the slight exception that her parents are not bazillionaires and that her mother was not a Spice Girl. But I'm sure that makes no difference to Meghan Markle. Obviously, it would be a mistake for Brooklyn Beckham to entertain any more media around his family, especially because the Beckhams are not amateurs. They're not like the royal family that will say recollections may vary and just keep a dignified silence about this. The Beckhams are very, very well seasoned media operators, and if they have to go against their own son, they will. Because in as much as he's complaining about his family and the fact that they're trying to control him, they are the reason why he's able to live a life to the tunes of hundreds of millions of pounds, and his wife apparently is worth $1 billion and gets a stipend of $1 million as an allowance from her father. So, there's a lot to remember there. The Beckhams are not the royal family, and they will do what they need to do to protect their own.
Writer and broadcaster Esther Krakue, thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to speak with you.
Thank you.